What is going on, guys? Cody here, and we're going to do something kind of old school. If you've been around YouTube for a long time like I have, like back 2011, 2012, Call of Duty commentaries were like the thing, like a lot of guys like Only Use Me Blade, White Boy 7th Street, they would just record gameplay and talk about a subject, and that's what I kind of want to do right now. And I've been playing Fortnite the last couple hours. And while I was playing Fortnite, I was listening to the CM Punk interview that he did with Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour. Now, Ariel Helwani, I think, is a phenomenal interviewer. Hearing his interview he did with Triple H, after SummerSlam 2022, I think it was. It wasn't long after Triple H came back to the company. Ariel Helwani, he just knows how to ask the right questions. So when it got announced that he was going to be interviewing CM Punk, I'm like, this is the best possible person to do this, other than Stone Cold Steve Austin. And Punk is very different in this interview than he was, say, in like the Colt Cabana interview, where he just sounds frustrated and he's talking with like a lot of anger in his voice, and he's just venting. And then you look at like the media scrum where he's talking with a lot of anger in his voice and he's venting, He really was just keeping a level head throughout this interview. And Ariel Helwani asked him a lot of questions that were tough, like especially because some of it I think Punk was lying on. We got to the point in the interview where, they pretty much just started talking about AEW. And like Punk says, like, oh, there are NDAs signed, but not because of anything I did. And then would get asked a question by Ariel, and Ariel would kind of like be like, hey, what's this, and Punk would dance around it. So there's definitely stuff that Punk can't talk about that he's kind of trying to save face on. And one thing that was also like made very clear in this interview was that CM Punk would not be back in this company if it wasn't for Nick Khan. And it just makes Nick Khan, again, one of the best signings in WWE history when it comes to executives, talent, whatever. Overall, he's one of the best signings ever, because just the way he's helping this company make money, and, now he's leading the company because Vince McMahon's disgusting, which they got into Vince McMahon in this interview. I'll touch on that here in a second. But if it wasn't for Nick Khan, CM Punk even said he would not be back. And another thing that Ariel asked him about that I was very interested to see how Punk would answer it was Triple H. And it seems like Triple H and CM Punk, they both kind of like matured over the last 10 years. And mature may not even be the best word to describe them, but, they freaking hated each other during Punk's first run. And now it just seems like everything's smoothed out between them. Punk said they've had some long conversations, and to quote what he was saying, it's all water under the bridge. So I really think a lot of it probably is Punk has somebody he hates more now with the Elite, with actually just the Elite, because, that was another thing he made clear in this interview. He doesn't hate Hangman. He didn't like that Hangman went off script. He's like, I get it, I made a career off of saying the things I shouldn't say, so he gets that with Punk. But he also wanted to beat the shit out of Hangman. And another thing, so Punk did not have a non-compete whenever he left AEW, which I think I heard Sean Ross Sapp confirm that during the release agreement with whenever CM Punk got fired. And that's the other thing. Punk says he quit. Now if you ask Tony Khan, Punk got fired, but Punk said after the incident with Jack Perry that he was like, fuck this company, I quit, basically. And then he went out and did the match with Samoa Joe because he's like, hey, it's going to be my last time ever wrestling Joe. He loves Joe. And plus it was in a big crowd, Wembley, all that. So that's why he quit before the match even happened, but he wanted to do it for Joe. And one thing in this interview, man, Jack Perry, Jungle Boy, he sounds like a major fucking asshole. Like, so apparently he was just incensed on doing this real glass spot, and he wanted to do it on a rental car, which makes the story even more stupid. that he's like, hey, I want to go fuck up my rental car that all these wrestlers use, and damage it. And Punk's like, that's just dumb. But apparently, like, Jack Perry started screaming at people when they told him not to do the spot. He screamed at agents. He screamed at Tony Schiavone. How much of an asshole do you have to be to scream at Tony Schiavone? Schiavone seems like one of the coolest dudes on earth. He just radiates grandpa energy to me, Like, I don't think Schiavone's a great commentator, but I think he's an awesome person. And the doctor for AEW, like, he's just screaming at all these people. And so then Punk told him, hey, you're not doing that glass spot. If you want to do that, go to Wednesday and do it. We're not going to do it on my show. And then Jack Perry, as we know at All In, did that on real glass, as he famously quoted. And between Sammy Guevara and Jack Perry, it just sounds like AEW is a elementary school. Because during the interview with Ariel Helwani, Guevara tweeted like, oh, I'm happy in AEW, something like that. I don't have the tweet pulled up right now because I'm playing video games. But it's like, dude, like, you knew if somebody was going to make a comment about this interview, it's going to be the immature asshole that always can't seem to keep his mouth shut. So I got Slim Shady right here. It makes me wonder what the actual backstage environment is like in AEW, because he starts talking about stuff and then he goes, oh, I don't want to get anyone in trouble. And it's like, okay, like, is there a retaliation environment in AEW where it's like, hey, you do this and hey, you're in trouble, fuck you. Like, that's what Punk was kind of making it sound like. One thing Punk also said about this AEW run is he does not regret it at all, even though, there's a lot of character assassination by, people in the company and people in the wrestling media. He made a lot of good friends there. One of the ones he shouted out was Brody King. And he also talked about the guys from FTR. He said he made a lot of great friends there, so he does not regret the run he had in AEW at all. But one damning thing in this interview is basically like, which in this interview, you can tell that Punk listens to Jim Cornette's podcast, like he alluded to this past Monday, with how Jim Cornette, always says Tony's not a boss, he's everyone's friend. And that's basically what Punk said in this interview is Tony's not a boss, he tries to be Mr. Nice Guy, and that ain't gonna work. And he says AEW's not gonna die as long as Tony's pumping money into it, but he says they're never going to grow beyond their niche audience. There we go. But Punk, he was also very complimentary to MJF, talked about how that was probably his favorite feud during his time in AEW and the stuff he's most proud of. One thing I found very funny actually was him talking about how media scrums are stupid, which, I mean, maybe he's a little jaded after what happened with his infamous media scrum, but I also find it very funny because, now, especially since Triple H took over the book, WWE does these media scrums pretty much after every pay-per-view now, and I mean, I think Triple H probably is smart enough not to give CM Punk a live microphone. Dang, I just got blasted there. But another interesting thing in this interview, and I'm jumping all over the place, like I said, I'm just shooting from the hip in this commentary. But one thing Ariel Helwani asked him about is, had he seen Vince McMahon since he came back to WWE in November? And CM Punk said he saw him once. It was at the new WWE headquarters, and I guess they have a gym in there, and Punk was going in there to work out, and Vince McMahon was in there working out, and Punk was on the phone with Nick Khan, I guess, and they told him, like, oh, Vince doesn't like when people are on the phone in the gym, but Vince walked up to him, gave him a hug, and said, welcome home, pal, stuff like the classic Vince McMahon line. It's just like whenever Paul Heyman came back to the company, I think, what did Vince say? Like, oh, come give me a huggy, he always gives people hugs whenever they come back, but he denounced all the terrible stuff that Vince has done, which I mean, no one can ever defend it ever. That's the thing. Like, what the hell did we think Punk was going to say? He answered the question very well, talking about just how terrible it all is. But he also said, like, hey, like, the Vince McMahon that I talked to, wasn't shitting on people's heads, or committing deplorable acts when I was talking to him. He was just like Vince McMahon. So that was an interesting way, or not interesting way. That was a way that people haven't worded it, where it's like people are talking about just how bad the actions are straight off, but it's also like, hey, what did you actually think about him? And John Cena kind of answered it like that a couple of weeks ago, and it got him in some hot water. I don't think CM Punk's going to get in hot water over this. I thought he answered the question very well. Another interesting thing in this interview is he said it doesn't look like AJ Lee is going to come back, which I think he's just working there. I think she's absolutely coming back. I mean, she's still like loosely involved in wrestling. Like, she's a part of that WoW promotion still, right? So she's still got wrestling in her veins. She will be back eventually. I can almost guarantee that. He's hoping that he will recover in half the time of his original triceps injury. And that was the other thing. He took a big shot at AEW's health department. He took a big shot at them and said, like, yeah, I got better rehab and stuff this time, so I'll probably be back faster than when I tore my triceps in AEW. I'm looking over the cliff notes of Sean Rossap. Thank you for tweeting all this stuff out, because it's kind of helping me reference stuff. But the only thing that Ariel did not ask him that I really wanted to know was, is Punk have like a coaching role at the PC, or is he just doing it for fun? Because there's been reports about him going and being at the PC a lot, actually, and talking about like helping the younger talent and stuff like that. So that's the thing. Like, we see the little relationships he's got with Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade and all those kids down in NXT. That's the thing I'm like really interested to see. Like, does Punk have like a coaching contract? And yeah, I'm about to die. Yep. Does Punk have a coaching contract, with the PC? So there's just that's the only question I really wanted an answer to. We did get the confirmation too that Punk had 2 contracts with AEW, an employment one and a talent one. Apparently he was like listed as a consultant to Tony Khan. So yeah, there was a lot of interesting things in this interview. Thank you guys for listening. I'm gonna cut it off here. We did 2 games. Thank you guys if you made it to the end of this video. I was just shooting from the hip here, just going off memory. The interview just happened. I wanted to talk about it with you guys because it's a trendy topic, and I feel like a lot of people are gonna want to discuss it in the comment section below. So let me know what your guys' opinions are on this CM Punk interview with Ariel Helwani if you guys listen to it. Wrestlemania predictions will be out later tonight. It'll be live on my channel after Monday Night Raw, so if you guys want to check that out, greatly appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you next time.